So, we're here to talk about Agentic AI, and I'd like to introduce Daryush. Daryush, can you give us a quick intro to who you are and what you do?
Sure thing. So I'm Daryush. I run the AI team for Ascendion. Ascendion is a software engineering services company. And we specialize actually in applying AI to the entire software development process, as well as applying AI to business processes and agentic worlds and things like that. We have been at this journey around generative AI for a while. Around beginning of December of 2024, we made a hard pivot to the agentic AI world, and we basically changed our underlying platform to be 100% agentic based. We made a strategic decision to actually build very, I would say, granular and low-level agentic tasks, which we can actually get into if the time allows. And at this moment, we have close to about 1,600 individual agentic tasks for the software development process end-to-end. Some of them are very, very domain-specific, but majority of them are actually fairly generic. So we have been basically running agents and agentic workflows for a while now, and we have seen quite a bit of success using that. Before Ascendion, I spent some time working on self-driving cars, working on AI in the cloud, working actually on building the underlying cloud, and building a cloud-based machine learning platform for one of the largest financial services companies in the world.
Great, thank you. So a lot of experience there. Can we start with maybe a quick, I mean, we've talked and we've seen panel discussions and Dara's excellent presentation this morning. So I'd be interested to get your take on how you define agentic AI, because it does mean a lot of different things to different people. And which kind of specific functions or workflows are already showing kind of promise in the capital markets space?
Sure thing. So it's about 12:15, and I think we started around 9 a.m. So by now, I believe there are at least 2 additional agentic flows already being released in the market. So I don't know about the latest ones that were released a few hours ago. However, when I think about the agents and the agentic world, I encourage everyone to have this mental model, that there are really 2 parts to it. There are the agents, which are autonomous entities, AI-based entities, that they can independently reason about the environment that they are in. They can sense the environment that they are in. They can capture the data points from that environment, and they can complete a task, a very complex task. The key word is autonomous and the complex tasks. Then we have agentic workflows, which are the workflows composed of these independent agents. Then together, they can actually tackle a use case. So an agent's job is to go and tackle a task, a complex task. Agentic workflows' job is to actually go and tackle the use cases. So I think that is a very, very interesting mental model to have. Now, in terms of some of the kind of use cases that I have actually seen quite a bit of success with agents and agentic workflows being applied to it. Obviously, software development kind of goes to the top. I think that using agents and agentic flows in software development almost is yesterday's story. Every software developer almost is actually using it right now. So I set that one aside. I think trade execution are some areas that we actually see quite a bit of success and some potential in their customer care and dealing with customer service related issues, whether it is an internal customer or an external customer. Those are, again, some areas that we see quite a bit of help from agentic flows. And I've already seen that quite a few financial services institutions are taking a step back and say, hey, I have this particular process end-to-end, and it's costing me X number of dollars, and it's taking me T amount of time. Can I do it a lot cheaper and a lot faster? So we see a lot of movement in that direction as well.
Excellent. So you mentioned there execution, trade execution is one area where you've seen a certain amount of success. What would you say kind of distinguishes the agentic AI implementation in these workflows from kind of earlier forms of automation or machine learning?
Well, let's actually go back to the definition of an agent. Remember, the definition of an agent is that it can reason about the world and it can independently complete a complex task. I would argue that in the trade execution, there's enough code out there that achieves that complex task, that it actually does the trade execution. The part that agentic AI actually comes into play is that reasoning part. And with the models like O3 or models like Sonnet 3.7, that they do a very good job in terms of reasoning, coupling what we already have with those reasoning modelings through technologies like A2A or MCP is actually yielding quite a bit of results. So we are just making what we already have in place a lot more intelligent using generative AI.
And are there particular dangers? I mean, once you get to the trade execution stage and you're putting trades into the market, are there particular dangers or risks that need to be managed, and how is that dealt with?
In other words, not having an agentic London whale?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
We talked about the kill switch kind of a little bit earlier today. I don't like the word kill. I think that has a very negative connotation to it. But some type of a BRB, a big red button that you can actually push and stop it. Now, before we get there, though, we actually do need to build quite a bit of observability in the system. So I think the place that we are lacking there is proper observability layers in our agentic flows to actually know where, when, and how to push that big red button.
And is that an area that you guys are working on closely? Is that observability?
Definitely an area that we can help our clients build it, yes.
Yeah, thanks. So let's talk for a couple of minutes about some of the kind of barriers to adoption of agentic AI. In your experience so far, what have you seen as being some of the biggest barriers to adoption?
A few things. So first of all, I would say the cultural aspect of the organization, as in, hey, if we actually get agentic AI and I deploy it, we'll lose a few of our colleagues. I actually think that is a complete wrong mental model to actually think about it. I think the way that we should think about that is not how many of our colleagues we are actually going to lose, but how many of our colleagues get to work on the stuff that we never had the budget or the time to actually go work on. So we shouldn't actually think about the benefits of AI in terms of how much I actually bring my cost. That is there, that will happen. I think below the line is always something that will be there. But I think our mental model should be how much of the opportunity cost of not doing things I don't have to worry about right now. In fact, I think our mental model should be Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, once said that it is best to look at the value of AI using how much GDP of a country will actually grow. And I think we should all think about using AI, how much the logical equivalent of GDP for our organization will actually go up. So that's the cultural barrier that I actually see. I think we need to knock that one out. So that's one. Number two are the regulatory and the compliance kind of bars. And if you won't mind me saying that, be a little bit controversial, I actually think that almost all of our regulatory and compliance barriers that we have right now is rather outdated in the world of the generative AI. I'll give you one example. Anytime that I wanted to launch a new model into production in my past life, some regulatory person came to me and said, okay, tell me what data you actually used to train that model. And that was a very, very fair question at that time, right? Now, with generative AI in place, if the same question is posed to me, I will take a step back and say, first of all, I am not putting a model in production. I am using Sonnet 3.5 or GPT-4o or GPT-4.5. Those models, first of all, not my models. They're someone else's models. And by the way, they are already in production. So first of all, I'm not building a model. I'm not shipping a model into the production. And then number two, the question of data that was actually used to train it. That question is a little bit difficult to answer right now. The true answer is that the entire internet, but that's probably not the answer that folks were looking for. So I would encourage everyone to think about the new, the regulatory bars and the implementation of those in the new world of Gen AI. We no longer, for the most part, don't build and train our own models to actually push them into production. We either use a model that is already out there, or we will fine-tune something like an SLM that is there. So the question should be around fine-tuning. Number two, we actually have another moving part in the system, which are our prompts. We need to talk about, okay, how those prompts were created, how they were actually structured, and things like that. Number three, we now have guardrails in the world, right? In fact, I want to challenge all the folks who are actually in the regulatory and compliance world to think about, to not think about their job as, hey, I have a series of policies, and I will go and kind of look at those policies and approve or reject. I want to challenge you to actually think about how do you build those guardrails at the code level and distribute it in your organization so that folks who are actually building models in lines of businesses incorporate those into their world. So that's another one. And the last thing is around integration of legacy systems into the AI world, right? At the end of the day, the agentic flow needs to be able to call into some existing and legacy systems. I think that was very, very hard up to about a few months ago. But with technologies like MCP, with technologies like A2A, we now actually have a framework to build APIs around these legacy systems and incorporate them more intelligently and more principally into our agentic flow. So I think overall the barriers are starting to go down.
Excellent. So can we drill down a little bit more on kind of challenges around explainability and the observability of these agentic AI systems? Especially from a kind of regulatory perspective, and when anything involving trade execution is involved, how much of a challenge is it to be able to explain exactly what's happening with these agents, and how do you get over those challenges?
So explainability of large language models, or I would say explainability of the foundational models, including large language models, it's a very tough job. I think it is still an academic research area that folks will continue to tackle. It is very, very hard to explain how an LLM comes up with the paragraph that it actually wrote when you ask it to actually write a story about, X and Y. So I'll set that one aside for right now. I think explainability there should be around, hey, I gave it this 1,000 prompts. These are the responses that it gave me, and this is why that is okay. But the key thing is observability. The key thing is to actually ask these reasoning models like O3, like Sonnet 3.7, to actually explain their thinking and their thoughts around it, and then be able to log those, how those reasoning systems were reasoning about a particular word. I think that is the key part.
How mature would you say that these models are for, or these frameworks are for observability and explainability? Is there still a long way to go there, do you think?
Tough question to answer, because I do not know exactly where the goalpost is to actually get there. But all of these reasoning models today will tell you exactly how they are actually reasoning about the world. In fact, if you have, let's say, one of the premium subscriptions to OpenAI, to ChatGPT, and you ask a reasoning model to actually go and do X, or ask something like deep research to go do a research job for you, the model will exactly tell you how it is actually thinking about it, what decisions it made, where it actually thinks it made the wrong decision, and which websites it actually went to. All of those are actually kind of transparent and logged. So we need to think about how do we actually get all of these logs, log them somewhere, and then go mine that data to actually observe the system. So I think we have a little way to actually get there in terms of the tools, but I think the basics are already there for us to tackle it.
Yeah, and aside from the tools, I mean, is there a greater role that you think that domain experts like traders or risk managers and so on can play in kind of either validating or calibrating some of those systems?
Calibrating, I do not know, because calibrating will then require us to go fine-tune or actually train a model. But in terms of looking at all the thoughts of an agent being logged, and then feeding that one again into another kind of Gen AI-based system with the correct set of prompts that the domain expert can create, and pool the data that we actually need of it, then that becomes a poor man's version of a very good observability framework. We do the same thing actually for software engineering as well. So we actually log all the reasoning kind of tasks that an LLM makes, and then we can actually go there and then mine it and then see whether it covered the tests correctly or covered the integration tests correctly and things like that.
Great. Do we have Slido questions? If you can bring those up. Okay, we've got 4 questions there and only a couple of minutes left. Are there any of those 4 questions that are that you'd particularly like to
We can tackle them in order. All right, so I think the first one is about explain more on the agentic decisions that are actually made by the agent for trade execution that is different than a systemic kind of model training. I think it is ultimately about describing the decisions or the thought that you want the reasoning model to have, and then relying on it to actually go reason about it, to say whether to actually make this trade or not. So part of it is going to be risk management. Part of it is going to be, hey, if I actually take this trade, can I take other trades after that or not? So there is a lot of reasoning and decisioning that agent can actually do among other things.
Okay. Next question. If you were leading a mid-sized capital markets firm today, what would be your first move to start adopting agentic AI in a meaningful but manageable way?
Interesting question. I think my very first step would be to actually depict the processes that I actually want my capital markets folks to actually go execute, depicting them on a whiteboard, taking a step back and ask, okay, of those processes that process that I just depicted on the whiteboard, how much of that I can actually let an AI system do independently? And how much of that I actually do not want an AI system to do, and I want a human to actually make the trade-offs. Mm-hmm. And also, where do I actually want to put my big red buttons to actually stop the agentic flow when things actually go wrong? So I start from there, and then everything else in terms of my logging and observability, in terms of which models I use, in terms of how much infrastructure I dedicate to it. All of that will then come from there. But I will start with depicting the processes on the whiteboard in boxes and arrows and diamonds for decisions, and then start thinking about how do I automate those.
Right. And I think we've only got a minute left, so I quite like that second question, actually. What keeps you up at night when you think about the risks or missed opportunities of deploying agentic AI too slowly or too fast?
What actually keeps me awake at night? I think what keeps me awake at night is how do we correctly estimate and then correctly measure the ROI of AI and agentic AI systems. Again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I still feel like that in the industry today, we are being very myopic. And we are always thinking about, hey, I use AI and I can cut my costs this much. I can lose these many colleagues. I can remove X number of steps, and it brings my costs down. I think that is correct, but I think that is myopic. What keeps me awake at night, or what frustrates me the most, is that why folks just think about all the hundreds of other things that they really wanted to do and their customers they needed, but they never had the time, the budget, the ability to go do. And why not go do those things, right? So thinking about how do you increase the logical equivalent of GDP for your organization, and the fact that folks do not actually go think about that is what frustrates me the most.
Excellent. I think, are we at the end of our allotted time, Denise? Okay, well, Daryush, thank you so much for a really interesting conversation. I hope the audience found it useful and insightful. But yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.